And we are live. Hey, Bill Gross here from Los Angeles, California, the LAProbateExpert.com. This is our Tuesday meeting, realestateinvestingzoom.com. We help brand new investors, we help experienced investors get together and find deals. We bring in key vendors and great teachers. Today we have a special guest, Calvin Sibley, who's going to share how he sells real estate around the country while he is living the life of luxury in Tulum, Mexico. And maybe tell you where Tulum is if you ask him nicely. Before we get started, just a couple quick things. We do record these. We put them on YouTube. We send them out afterwards. Please, if you like it, like it. If you don't, give me a comment. Subscribe. The channel will help us build our audience and help more people discover what we're doing. And then every Thursday, I have a call, 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is focused in probate real estate called probateweekly.com. You can sign up for that as well. So what I do every week is start off the first little bit with a little bit of content that's consistent for investors, whether you're new or old or a real estate agent. There's about 21 or 22 different disciplines or systems you have to be successful. And so what I do is each week spend about 5 or 10 minutes talking about one of them. And today, number one, we'll start off appropriately is goals. You have to have goals. You know, one of my first coaches was Zig Ziglar, and he would say all the time, you have to have goals. Just like that. And it's true. You have to have a clear North Star where you're headed, or it doesn't matter what you do. To go back to Alice in Wonderland, when she popped up and saw Cheshire Cat, and she said, well, where should I go? And he said to her, well, where do you want to go? She said, I don't really know. And he said, it doesn't matter where you go. As realtors and investors, it doesn't matter what you do if you don't have a clear goal. I have a clear goal. My clear goal was 35 transactions in a 12-month period. To do that, I got to sell houses. I got to think of listing every other week. I got to put some in escrow every other week to accomplish that goal. Turns out I'm actually ahead of that goal. So good for me. But the goal has driven me. When things were tough, when I was tired, the goals kept me focused on what I need to do. And so I'll tell you one of the key things of anything of accomplishment, sales and real estate in particular, is you have to have goals, whether it be financial or independence, the lifestyle you want to live. So I'm going to share a couple points on that. Number one, listen to positive material every day. Listen to positive material every day. Now, one of our guests today, Calvin, is a teacher in wholesale and flipping real estate. Great material. Listen to some of that every day. I've been listening to Grant Cardone. He has a free 1 hour a day, every day this week program called the 10X Real Estate Agent Challenge. I've sent some of you guys a link to that, to the workbook. It's on YouTube. You can watch yesterday's, you can watch today's, and the next 3 days. But every day, he puts some positive thoughts in my mind about the real estate business, about how I can be successful if I push myself, about the steps I have to take. But you got to listen to it. I think it's like brushing your teeth, or I would say taking a shower. You got to do it every day, or else you start to smell. You really got to do it every day, right? And I don't want to get too personal here. I actually probably take 3 showers a day. I swim, shower afterwards. But anyhow, my point is, I listen to positive material every day as well, all day long, and I keep out the negative. I don't listen to the news. I give myself 1 hour a week to read or watch the news. That's it. I get enough. I can't have that negative energy coming in. I need to overwhelm myself with positive listening. So something to think about is constantly putting in every day good stuff into your head. Grant Cardone's great. Tony Robbins is great. There's a lot of great material. But make sure that you're consciously making the choice to listen to good material daily. Number two, you have to focus on your plan. What are you trying to accomplish specifically? Too many people come to real estate investing conferences all the time. Never have planned to say, I'm going to invest in one house in 2020 or 2021 or 2 houses or whatever the number is. When you have the plan, it forces certain actions. Review that goal and plan on a regular basis to push yourself to get to where you want to go. I'm really big on 90-day goals. I'm not big on year-long plans. So when I made my goal for the year, which was to achieve a certain status in my company, I broke it down and said, well, 90 days, what do I need to do? And it was 13 transactions a month, and I got on that right away. As a result, I'm actually ahead of the pace I need to be. So write out those 90-day action plans and keep yourself on that. Number 3, a great tool, particularly if you need to get started. Write yourself a letter every year, December 31st, for the next year. Write yourself a letter in advance of what you want to accomplish for the year. You can do it now and mail it yourself and hold on to it until December 31st. You can do it now and hold on to it December 31st and read it then. But forward think where you want to be in your goals. Where do you be financially, personally, health-wise, in every other respect? Write yourself a letter ahead of time and start thinking about the future as though it happened the way you want to. Number 4 is, it sounds good to have a balanced life, very hard to do. Sounds great, very hard to do. You want to be excellent in every area that you can. Don't be out of balance so much that it destroys the other areas. But just know that generally we go through spurts in one area of our lives and kind of pause the others at an acceptable level. And number 5 is, if your goal is to dramatically increase your business, don't be surprised if you're a little out of kilter, because you're not used to that. I went from management and coaching, and I had a good job, and I worked hard to help people, and I went back to production from zero. I wasn't used to having 5 or 6 transactions and 3 or 4 listings at a time. That's a lot of phone calls. That's a lot of people. I had to learn how to structure my day around that. My systems were in alignment with all that. So don't be surprised if it's uncomfortable to go through a transition. You'll get used to it. You'll figure it out. You'll adapt to it. Just push through that. Number 6 is share your goals with your family. Nobody's going to hold you on your goals better than your spouse, than your kids, your little mini me, because they want to see you succeed. And so if you're scared, that's a good reason to share your goals with your spouse and your mini me. And the last thing I want to leave you with is, you become what you think about regularly. So think about your goals all the time. Think about, for me, it was most recently taking a listing every other week. And then my stretch was listing weekly. And the 2 weeks ago, I took 4 listings. I'd never done that before. 4 separate customers, not for one guy with 4 listings. Because I was thinking every week I need a listing, every week I need a listing, every week I need a listing. I didn't do it all the time. I failed half the time. Oh, well, I only took 1 every other week. And all of a sudden I get 4 like that and 3 going to escrow. So think about what you want all the time. You want to buy a house and make money, you want to retire on it, whatever your goal is, think about it. I have it typed in front of me. Look at it all the time. It's in my to-do list to read every single day. Keep it top of mind. Keep yourself focused on that. Okay, so talking to somebody who is accomplished a lot, just the time that I've known him. I've known him about a year or so. Calvin, when I knew him, was in Florida. He was a young guy doing some deals in Florida. Now he's an international real estate guru. And particularly where we match up well is he really has a lot of expertise specifically in wholesaling. And also wholesaling out of the market you live in. So for those of you here in Southern California with a question, well, how do I make money? I live in LA, and LA is this and that. You can't make money here. We all have excuses. Here's a guy who can eliminate those 2 excuses, as well as an expert and very successful in the field of wholesaling and flipping, Calvin Sibley. So welcome, Calvin.
Well, thank you for having me, Bill, and definitely not a guru. I'm just a regular guy who does deals. And you just shared so much great information, so many good tips. For me, I just like reading every morning. I just read, on Kindle. I just like having a little space in the morning to read something positive. So I agree, that's super important every day.
Share something that you've read recently that you liked.
Well, I read books on all different kind of topics. There's one called Transurfing, which is just about how we can create our reality. So there's a lot of it's kind of new age stuff, but law of attraction and just putting that positive mindset, that positive material into your head every day really can have a positive effect on our lives.
Now, Calvin, you live now in Mexico. You've been there for how long? 6 months?
So yeah, almost a year, about 8 or 9 months. I actually have a Mexican citizenship, so I have dual citizenship. My mother was born in Mexico City, and during the pandemic, I was living in Miami, and everything was closed. I mean, we couldn't go out, the restaurants, you guys know, everything was shut down. And so it was just a natural step for me to move here. I didn't have to deal with visa issues, and I've been here almost going on a year.
But hold on, what do you do with your business while you're gone?
Well, so I've been wholesaling properties for 10 years, and I assume it's mostly agents on the call. So I've been a licensed agent for 15 years, but I started working in remote markets, virtual markets in Florida, and realized I could do this from anywhere. And so now I'm able to wholesale properties where I never meet the seller, I never meet the buyer, I never go to the house, and I don't go to the closing. And if you had told me this was possible a few years ago, I probably wouldn't believe you. But the first thing I would suggest for the agents on the call is, before we get into the specifics of wholesaling or kind of the jargon, is to just start thinking about working with investors. If you're not working with investors, even if you're in a competitive market, they're out there. There are so many investors, and I'll give you a quick tip right off the bat here, which is post your deals in Facebook groups. That's how I'm able to sell properties in markets where I don't know anyone. I've never been there. I don't know anything about these small towns, but there are Facebook groups and you post your deals in there and it's amazing. People will comment on them and they'll want to see them and they'll buy them.
So it's interesting because I came from a real estate background where we didn't do wholesaling, we didn't work with investors, we didn't really encourage flipping. And I have to tell you, this year I've had two nice wholesale deals. I made as commissions and found them as an agent, but kind of with an investor's mentality that I made really good money on. And I think I look back, both of them, I didn't go to the property, didn't meet the buyer, didn't meet the seller. We don't go to closings here in LA anyhow. So it certainly is possible. So how do you find the deal? Obviously, the challenge is finding a deal. The selling of the deal, if it's good price in today's market, seems like the easy part. Where are you finding deals? Can you share that? Or I know that you have a program that goes in a deep level, but kind of an overview, where are you finding deals?
Well, I can answer that, but the first thing I would say is it's a big step to go from working as an agent in your own town to wholesaling properties in another market. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of nuances and things you have to do. To answer your question, I run ads. I run ads on Google and Facebook. And
Yes.
so I get leads online. I used to do direct mail for years, but for everybody on the call who works in a market and it's just, that market and you're comfortable there, I would put it to you to consider working with investors and start talking to sellers. Take off your realtor hat and start thinking as an investor and just start having a dialogue, because I did it for years as a realtor, cold calling for listings. I did the whole Mike Ferry and Craig Proctor training for sale by owners and expired listings, and that gets old. That's a lot of rejection. And so it's just a little bit of a shift going from, okay, I'm interested in listing your house to, hey, what's going on with your property? Are you thinking about selling it? And then you can say, I buy homes or I work with investors in the area and let's talk about this. But to answer your question, yeah, I'm running ads online.
Very nice. And I asked a question I know the answer to because I took your program a while ago, and so I've seen your program is very detailed. You have the scripts, you have the particular copy of things you do, and go into detail. But would you agree or not agree that the key is really finding the deal? If you find somebody who's willing to sell at a price, at the right price, it's almost impossible not to make money in this market. True or false?
Well, it depends, because it is true there are buyers out there for a good deal, but there has to be certain criteria that the deal meets, and including right now I'm only dealing with vacant houses. If there's a tenant with everything going on with the eviction moratorium, I don't deal with it, and it has to be priced right. And if you find a deal and it's vacant and it needs some work and you can get a contract and an option on it, you can find a buyer for it, definitely.
Yeah. So you have had a coaching or training program on how to do wholesaling that I know of for a year or so, at least that I know of. I think I was in the first group when you first launched it, if I remember right. What do you see as the biggest challenge for people who want to get started to actually get that first or second deal? What do you see as the impediment holding them back?
Well, the first thing is my course was about probates, which is part of my business. I have a 1-day kind of crash course on wholesaling, virtual wholesaling, which is what I'm doing. But I would say the biggest impediment is just mindset and just thinking, not thinking you can do it, but thinking like a realtor. And because realtors only make money from commissions, right? Or if they do a rental, I guess a rental income, but they make money from commission. So it's shifting from thinking, okay, I'm going to make a commission to I'm going to make a profit. And once you start thinking like an investor, then the whole approach is different. And so if you don't have a big budget, I mean, Google AdWords and Facebook ads took me a long time to figure out how to get it, right, and how to get it working. But you could just start working at, or just reaching out to people in your community. You could post, for example, in a buy sell group or in a Facebook group and look for sellers, because the investors are there. They will see your deal. It really is not that hard. And the other thing is, I don't worry too much about the valuation, because remember, I'm doing this in houses. I don't know anything about these towns. Like I make a calculated guess about what it's worth. I mean, an educated guess, but ultimately the market will tell you what it's worth.
Yes.
And so I don't worry too much about that. As long as it looks good on paper, I will get an option. I'll get a contract on it and I will start marketing it. So if you're going to start doing this, I would say, like you said, find the sellers. But if you don't have a big marketing budget, or you don't want to learn Google ads, which I kind of had to geek out on for a couple of months to figure out, and hire people to teach me how to do it. But you can just start posting in groups. One thing you could do is, if I were starting, I would go on the MLS, I would find a couple of deals, something that looks good, like a multifamily, post it in some groups and start getting some buyers. The other thing you could do, a little trick, is go into a Facebook group and search for, just look at what other people are posting. Other people are posting deals, right? So they've got a wholesale deal. So they're going to say, oh, I've got a 3-bedroom house in wherever, Orange County somewhere. And drop your email address in the comments if you're interested. Well, these are buyers. These are buyers that are looking to buy. So those are free leads for you. So one thing you could do is you could go through a Facebook group, find other people's posts, get all those email addresses and send them an email, or they're commenting with their personal Facebook page, add them as a friend and send them a message. Hey, I saw you're looking for a 3-bedroom house. Are you still buying? Well, if they were buying a week ago, they're probably buying now, right?
I saw a wholesaler, in the MLS, we need permission to post other agents' listings, depending on what company you're with and such. But wholesalers, there's no such limit, right? Technically, they're not under contract. So I met a wholesaler who all he does is finds wholesalers posting a property that looks like a good deal. He posts the exact same property, knowing the guy posting is looking for $15,000 or $20,000. If he asks for $3,000 or $5,000 of that money, the guy will say yes if he finds a buyer for it.
Yeah.
So it's really.
You're talking about basically co-wholesaling or joint venturing. That's good to sell your deals where someone else will sell it for you because they have a buyer already. But you don't want to sell someone else's deal. You use that post to find buyers. But if it's already with a wholesaler or if it's listed on the MLS, it's typically not a deal. So you have to look for off-market properties, right? And then you can talk to those sellers and you can tell them, oh, I work with a group of investors. They're looking to buy. Tell me about your property. Now you have started a dialogue with them that can lead to something else, doing a deal with them.
Help me answer one question that baffles me. I get newer investors all the time who call me up and say, hey, I'm looking to add to my Rolodex of investors. And I would say to them, don't worry about that. You find a deal. Every investor in the market is going to call you. You're like now the prettiest girl at the prom in a tight dress with a low cut front. They're all going to come after you if you're available. I've never called any investors. I got a pretty full Rolodex of investors in my listings. Am I missing a point here somewhere? What am I missing?
Well, you're not missing anything, but the point is that people focus on some of the wrong things. I mean, yeah, okay, if you want to build a huge buyers list in one market, sure, you could do that. But the highest and best use of your time is talking to a motivated seller and making them an offer.
That's it.
Whether it's to buy their property or to list it if you're an agent. But so many sellers, this is why I got into wholesaling. As soon as you say, oh, I'm looking at, when are you going to interview the right agent for the job of selling your home, right? Remember the Mike Ferry script?
Yep.
And they immediately get defensive and say, oh, no, I'm not listing it. Well, okay, maybe they don't want to list it, but they want to sell it, right? So because in their mind, they're thinking, oh, how much is this going to cost me? So if you take a little bit of a different approach, you may end up still listing it, but you have a dialogue going now where they're going to start opening up to you. And you have to get to the root, what's really going on with them, because that's the key. You have to find a motivated seller.
I've been promoting to everybody who I know to join in on Grant Cardone's 10X Real Estate Agent Challenge, which is going on this week, Monday through Friday, 12 noon, recorded. If you don't have the link, send it to me. Let me know and I'll get it for you. He said something yesterday that I thought was fascinating. I'd love to get back your reaction to this. He said the idea there's low inventory is a myth. He said the amount of sales this year from last year, it's up maybe 3%. Not much. 3%, it feels like a lot. There's intensity, there's more money. It's up 3%, maybe 5%. But it's about the same. He said the number of houses in America is about the same. The problem is the inventory being sold, more of it is off market than ever before. Meaning the obvious place to look for business today is not on the market, but off market sellers who might want to sell for whatever reasons they have. Agree or disagree?
Well, it depends on the market. I mean, I was in South Florida. South Florida doesn't have a lot of inventory. Southern California probably doesn't, although I'm not as familiar with that market. But if you go into rural America, there is a ton of inventory on the market. And so it really depends on where you are located. But there's a ton of buyers and sellers. The thing about investment properties is there will always be buyers and sellers.
Bingo.
Whether the market is going up, down, sideways, recession, Great Recession, COVID, there's always buyers and sellers. But the key is to find the sellers. So again, like I said, if there's one thing you could do, if you don't want to get into Google AdWords, go in these Facebook groups and say, I'm working with some investors. Does anyone in this group have a property that they're thinking of selling or know of anyone who is? But the thing is, if you get a response and you start talking to them, you find out the information, you have to get something in writing before you go take that property and market it for sale. Whether it's a contract to purchase that's assignable or a listing agreement or an option agreement, don't spend time selling a property that you have no control over, whether it's through a listing or you could even come up with something creative. I think someone posted in the chat, if you're an agent, you could come up with something like a pre-listing package. And just, I'm a realtor and I'm going to list your home. But before I put it on the market, I have my own buyers that I'm going to send it to. And a lot of sellers will go for that.
I agree.
But it depends on the seller too. Like I said, every seller's situation is different. So you've got to get to the root cause. I've got one closing on Monday where the lady has to bring money to the closing. And your average realtor wouldn't think that this lady would take a huge price reduction, agree to a huge price reduction to sell it. But there's a reason, she has a reason to sell. She's motivated, so she's willing to sell at a discount.
I find that in this market, I have to work harder to find listings, but they're easier than ever to sell. Right? So I put more work into looking for deals, and I spend way less time managing the deals that we have because of the market forces.
So yeah, someone commented in the chat, are you talking about two different things, working with investors who buy and then find sellers of properties investors are interested in? Find sellers of property. Yes, but you start with, I'm talking about two different things, but I'm saying you start with the sellers. You start with finding sellers because the investors are there and they're in the Facebook groups and it's not that hard to find them.
If you don't have an investor, call me.
Post it on Craigslist. People will start calling you, but you have to find the sellers. And if you're not working with investment type properties, then I encourage you to start, because it's all I do living in Tulum, Mexico. You know,
I don't know where Tulum, Mexico is, and you're selling property. Where did you sell property last month?
Where?
Yeah.
Illinois, Alabama.
What cities?
Springfield, Illinois, Mobile, Alabama, Jacksonville, Florida. Just little towns all over the US.
Yeah, that you probably couldn't find with a map. You probably couldn't find them, but you sold them, made money on them. That's funny. Okay, so look, for those of you who want to get started, those of you who are experienced and want to up your game, Calvin, I know you have an upcoming program we talked about you wanted to offer. So you want to share that with our group here?
Well, the one-day crash course is called Freedom Wholesaling, and that just goes over everything I do. It's $97, freedomwholesaling.com. But even if you don't buy that, it's 3 hours, so it's not overwhelming. The probate course took me 2 months to create, and that is a tremendous amount of information and knowledge in there. But the one day for what I'm doing now, freedomwholesaling.com, and you can get started with that. But even if you don't get that, I would just say start familiarizing yourself with the investment properties in your market. Like start with the MLS, what's selling, what are people buying, you know, what are market rents, and then start posting in some Facebook groups. I'm looking to buy a house in the next couple of months. Does anybody have something?
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so I know we got some questions in the chat box. These answers along the way and some very nice feedback. Thank you for the feedback. Who's got a question? Now, this is Calvin. He's both teaching material, experience in probate, wholesaling, but doing it on a daily basis at a really high level. So who's got a question here for Calvin? Anybody? Here's your chance for free. And just remember, the more you participate, the more money you make this year. So who's up for learning how to wholesale? No? Good info. A lot of encouragement. Well, look, Calvin, I appreciate.
I got a question.
Oh, go ahead. Who is this?
Okay, Bill. It's William.
William, how you doing?
All right, man. I'm a little covered up, man. I'm in the post office.
You scared the hell out of me. I thought you're a bank robber. Go ahead.
It's just a mess, Bill. It's just a mess.
Well, the deep voice too scared me.
Oh man, no, I mean, I'm in public, so you know.
You sound all serious.
Calvin, great information, man. Seriously. What do you usually charge as the liaison, you know, between the I guess the seller and the actual investor to kind of put it all together? Do you have a particular
Well, there's no fee paid by the seller. It's not like a commission, like a realtor charges typically 6%, 3% going to the buyer's agent, 3% going to the seller's agent. I'm making a profit on the transaction. So let's say I get a house for $70,000 or say $65,000 and I get it under contract with the seller. I could sell it for say $105,000 and make $45,000 on one transaction. Now on a $100,000 house, a 3% commission would be $3,000, and I could make $45,000. And if you're wondering if that's a real transaction, that is an actual closing from this year on a house in Alabama Yes.
So you're protected by escrow. How do you ensure you get paid? So you don't get cut off the deal.
So, right. So you get paid in wholesaling one of two ways. It's either an assignment fee or you get a profit on a double closing. On bigger fees, like over $40,000, you want to do a double closing. And that's where you actually close on the property and then resell it the same day to your end buyer, to your investor. And typically you have to use transactional funding. And this is why I was a little concerned. I don't want to go too deep and start to lose people. But basically, you're not charging a fee. You're making a profit. That's the mindset shift. That's a little different than a realtor. And if you are a realtor and you're approaching a seller, you could say, my fee is paid by the buyer. You know, that's how it's done in Europe. A lot of people don't know that, but in Europe, in England and France and stuff, the buyer pays the commission. Or in New York City for rentals, the buyer pays the rental fee or the tenant. So you could go to sellers and you could say, this could be the pitch, right? All right, Mr. Seller, I may be interested in buying your property and know someone who would. If you didn't have to pay any commission, what would be the best price you would sell the property for? And you see what they say. And then the follow-up question, is that the best you can do? But yeah, you tell them there's no fee for selling your home, just to screen for motivation, right? Now, if you are approaching sellers and you're a realtor and you want to list the property, it's kind of hard to go back to them and say, oh, actually, I want to list it. My fee's 6%. But if you know they're a motivated seller and they want market value, refer it to someone else in your office and get 50% of the commission or 30% or whatever agents charge, a referral fee. So does that answer your question? It's a profit on the transaction, not a fee that's paid by the seller.
Yeah, I think he's in a bad spot, but
I hope that answered his question.
I think you did. No, I think there's a important distinction. As an agent, I do deals where I will represent the buyer, not the seller. There's a form we sign in California telling the seller, I'm not representing you. I'm being paid by the buyer.
Well, the buyer does pay. I mean, I have the one closing on Monday. It's kind of a funny story. In Illinois, I'm not registered to do business. So I set it up where instead of a double closing, I did a new contract directly from the seller to the buyer. And I went to the buyer, my fee is $13,500. And I told the buyer this, and he's paying it. So it's a little bit of a mindset shift that it's not the seller that pays it, it's the buyer.
Yeah. No, I've just closed 2 deals in a row where the buyers paid me large fees. I have one where my buyer's making $120,000 and my commission is about half of that. I said, if I put the deal together, you agree to all the numbers, that's what I get.
And Bill, drinks on you tonight, huh?
Well, I'm waiting for the notice of a closing. So it recorded supposedly this morning. We're waiting for confirmation. Yeah, if it closes, I'll buy drinks for everybody on the call. That was great. Next time I'm in, where are you, Tulum, Mexico?
I live in Tulum.
Next time I go to Tulum, Mexico, I'll buy you a drink.
Sweet.
I'll be in Florida in July. I'd love to buy you a drink in Florida. I'll be in Aventura in July. Okay, who else has a question? We got a real live, oh, here you go. Is the question, I think you answered this, is wholesaling an option for licensed realtors? So now Andrea's in California, law is a little different, but basically same concept, Calvin. How do you handle that distinction? I think you covered it more as an investor side, but how do you, are you allowed to do it? And the answer is, yeah, as long as you disclose who you're charging and what, you're fine, right? In California, we have a form to tell the seller, I'm not representing you. The buyer's paying me. We get the seller to sign it. We're good, right? The problem that people have is when they mislead the seller into thinking, I'm representing you, and my job is to get you best price, but I'm going to sell it to somebody and make a profit, and they're going to pay me and share the profit. That's where the problem comes into play. Calvin, how do you see that challenge as an agent? And I think you told me you're doing less as an agent now or none, and almost all as a wholesaler.
Yeah, well, you just answered it. You just have to disclose to everybody. And I put it in the contract. So I make offers to the sellers. That's how I get the properties. I have control over the property. And in the contract, it says Calvin is a licensed agent in Florida. And I have never had someone talk to me about it. In 10 years, no one has ever said anything asking me about being licensed. It's just not an issue. But
Just
it is
disclose it.
legal. As long as the contract is assignable, you can assign it. And if it's not, you can do a double closing. So there's always ways around it. But yeah, you're right, Bill. You just have to disclose that you're licensed.
Kanisha asked a question. How do you get paperwork? I mentioned these forms and such, but the homes under contract. And I'll share with you, I have investors bring me deals and I put under contract and they pay me a fee as a commission agent. But I'll do all the contract for them and e-sign it to the seller. That's one option. But do you have, Calvin, do you have wholesale forms as part of your class or program? It is. I took it. I can't give out your forms, but I believe I have access to them still. You have forms in your program, don't you?
Well, yeah, all the contracts and forms are in there. They're also in the Freedom Wholesaling one-day course. But I use HelloSign, which is like DocuSign.
Yep.
And so it's really simple. It's a little easier to use, than DocuSign, I've found.
Yep.
It's a little cheaper too, but I work with a lot of the sellers are a little elderly. So this technology you want to use the easiest method. But I used to have to print out the contract and put it in an envelope with a return envelope.
Yep.
And then send it to the seller. Every day I was going to the post office. It took half my
Yep.
day printing out these contracts. And now it's just
Yep. Yeah, I used to do the same thing with FedEx. I print out FedEx and then I would take a return FedEx and put it in a folder, put it in the FedEx envelope and have them sign and send back to me so I have tracking information on it. So yeah. So the answer is though, again, in your wholesaling program, Freedom Wholesaling, you do include all the contracts?
Yeah, it's all in there. It's in a Google Drive folder, a shared folder.
For $97, that's a great deal. Because I get asked it all the time, and I'm not ever gonna give out your forms. I paid for them. I don't think that's the right way to do it. But for $97, that's ridiculous. I pay $500 a year to be a realtor to get our contracts. So good answer to that question. Kanisha, you got that? I think you were on, and then I think you disappeared. Okay, good. Other questions for a real live, successful living in Tulum, Mexico wholesaler?
Yes, this is Anders. I have a question.
Yes.
So you said you double close. I've heard that there are escrow companies that don't want to do that and say that it's illegal. Have you ever run into that?
Yeah, you run into it occasionally, but not that often. Not that often. And that just brings up a key point of having a relationship with an investor-friendly title company.
Yep.
And there's a simple way to find out if they're investor-friendly, which is to call them and ask them if they will do assignments or double closings. So some title companies, yeah, maybe they won't. It doesn't mean that it's illegal. It just might go against their own office policies or whatever. But yeah, sometimes when I'm in a new market, I might have to call around and find a good title company, and it might take me an hour, but it's not hard. I mean, you eventually find one.
In California, I just for the first time used one. I did a double close, referred by my investor, and lickety split. She was great. In fact, I just opened a regular escrow with her because I want to stay in that relationship and with them. So if you need somebody here in California, reach out to me. I'd be glad to make an introduction. Good.
I have another question.
Go.
So you said you go on Facebook, find a Facebook group and say, hey, I'm buying, interested in single family homes, at least 2-bed, 2-bath, renovation objects or something. Is it on real estate Facebook groups, or do you go on any dog?
It's
whatever.
That's not actually what I'm doing.
Oh.
So the way I get motivated sellers is I run ads. I pay for ads for Google AdWords and Facebook ads. So the way I sell my deals is I go into real estate investor groups that are in the town or county or even just in the state. And I say, hey, everybody, I've got this deal in this town. Is anybody buying? That's how I sell them. My suggestion for people in this group who don't want to set up a whole Google AdWords campaign is to go into Facebook groups and post that you're looking for a property to buy, but not in a real estate group. Because if you post in a real estate group, you're going to get a bunch of realtors hitting you up thinking that you're going to be their next buyer client. And that you don't want that, especially if you're already a realtor. So what my suggestion is, you go into buy, sell, trade groups, or post on your own page or other groups. There's so many different, I mean, get creative. What are you interested in? Like, do you like dogs? Do you like music? I mean, there's groups about everything. Maybe you're into knitting or hiking or whatever. You find a Facebook group and then you go in there, but I wouldn't, again, this is a suggestion for how to find a few sellers to get started. But I wouldn't post something so specific, like, oh, I want a 2-bedroom, 3-bath. Just say, I'm looking, does anybody in this group have a property they're thinking of selling in the next couple of months? Keep it casual, keep it kind of general, and you may get some responses. I know there's one guy named Kyle Rogers who he actually developed this software. It's called a bot. I think it posted these kinds of posts automatically. And he has a coaching program. You can look it up. He charges something like $5,000 or $10,000 just to teach you how to post in these groups. And he actually teaches you what he teaches is, I haven't done his program, but it's where you hire a virtual assistant and they start posting in all these groups. Well, you don't need to go and do all that. Just go into some groups and post that you're looking to buy a house, or you work with an investor looking to buy. I would say that you're looking yourself. You're looking to buy yourself. And then when someone comments, don't engage them in the comments, right? You just say, okay, I sent you a message. Like that, like the comment, add them as a friend, and then say, send you a message, and then take it off the post. Now you're engaged with them in Messenger. And then from Messenger, you can set up a phone call, and now you got a seller lead that was free. You thank me later.
Go to Tulum, Mexico, buy him some drinks. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, great stuff. Any other questions or for a real live wholesaler, flipper, really doing it, making a living at a high level? Those of you who want to get started, here's your chance. What's holding you back? Anybody else?
Well, the other thing I was just thinking, Facebook is not the only platform. You could also use Twitter. You could use LinkedIn. If you use LinkedIn, there's got to be other ways. If you just start thinking, I just have my own way of doing it, which is running ads, which you could do, but just start thinking creatively. What's going on in your community? Maybe you're part of a church group. Well, then maybe you should start telling people in your church group that you're looking to buy a house. And maybe you actually do buy the house. If you can buy a house for $60,000 that's worth $150,000, maybe you can buy it yourself. So you don't have.
Hold on. Anybody here who can buy a house for 60 that's worth 150 can buy a house for 60.
Yeah, or wholesale it for 105 like I did a month ago and make $45,000.
There you go.
On the beach in Tulum. But yeah, if you just go start networking with people and start telling everybody you're looking to buy, it's just a little bit of a mindset shift from working as a realtor to working as an investor, where the real money is made anyway, frankly.
Yeah, everybody here has access to money. If there's a good deal, let me just assure you, there's all the money you need. I had a friend who found a property. He didn't put any, he put up $10,000. My investor would have put the money up for him in this case. He didn't have to. And then we did a double close, and they paid for the transaction financing, and they found the escrow. And so my client literally put no money up but $10,000, bought a house for $320,000, sold it for $460,000, after expenses, pocket over $100,000 profit.
Yeah, so it's just start thinking about working with investors. You know,
Yes.
and even if you didn't want to do all this stuff with trying to find motivated sellers, you could also find the buyers, do what I said earlier. You can watch this recording again, but you go into real estate groups, find other people posting deals, see who's commenting on it, usually get their email address, add them as a friend, message them, are you looking for deals? And then start sending them deals straight off the MLS. It's just, you could probably get 25 buyers right today, right off of these Facebook groups for free. And then you can just start sending them deals. You may be able to put a deal together right off of the MLS. You don't even need to find a seller or buy the Freedom Wholesaling and do that.
I ask big investors all the time. I mean, big companies like Sunday, Wedgeworth, Black Box, Urban Cities here in California. They all say they get half to 80% of their deals off the MLS. And it's crazy for investors, for realtors not to use that to sift through and find the good ones.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, that's just one idea to get some deals going if you want to start working with investors. But you're still only going to make 3%, right? The big spreads, these big chunks of cash you can make are finding the seller, going directly to the seller. And negotiating with them and then getting it under contract and then selling that to an investor. And the average fee is, if you make $10,000, how many do you have to do a month? 1, 2 a month is $250,000 a year. And you could do that on top of what you're doing as a realtor. I'm not saying you stop being a realtor. I did because I wanted to take off to Mexico, but most people, they're going to continue working in their market, which is great. Just continue being a realtor and then start working with investors.
Exactly. Excellent.
Maybe these investors have a house they want to sell. Maybe they want to buy a house for themselves. Maybe they, I'm buying homes. And by the way, I want to sell my own personal residence or primary residence.
Excellent. Okay, so we're coming up in an hour, so we're going to wrap up here. Again, we put this out every week. For those who, if you miss one on YouTube, we'll send out to you for our email list. Love you to like it, comment on it, or subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. Calvin, again, has a great program, $97. It's crazy the amount of material he gives you for his program. I've had it. Again, people ask for it. I don't give it out. For $97, you can have it. If you're an investor, business person, want to be, freedomwholesaling.com, $97. You're going to get all the forms, all the features you need to, if you need some help in the wholesaling. As he said, you don't need to, and I would say if you find a good deal, call me. I can put it into a realtor contract and help you walk through that process as well, if that's how we do it. But the most important thing, find people who have a problem with a property, help solve that problem, and we all get paid. That's the number one takeaway here is that's your job. Find people who need to sell a house or have a problem and they own property, help them solve that problem, right?
Hey, Bill, also as a follow-up, if anybody wants to ask me any questions about this or in the future, is it okay if I put my Facebook group?
Yes.
So
you do what, Calvin?
Here's a link in the chat. You can join my Facebook group. It's about wholesaling probates, but if you start doing this and you get stuck, or if you have a question, you can post in the group and I'll answer it.
He does. And the people that love him, that's how I met him, as I was following his Facebook group. I think it was a different one before this, then you started this one as a result to. But I saw him doing deals, and I like to follow people who are actually doing business. I think there's a lot of coaches who can't do this anymore, who will sell you a program about what they did that worked 5 years ago. Here's a guy who's doing it literally in Tulum, Mexico. He's not sitting at the pool right now, but most of the time he's sitting on the pool.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, show it to me. He doesn't actually have a daiquiri in his hand right now with a little umbrella. He put it off camera, but he has it waiting for him as soon as he's done here. So this is the life.
Down here, but I thought about doing a coaching program and charging $5,000 or something, but I'm doing so many deals, like that's where the money's made. And I just this is what I do all day. I talk to people all day about this and I love it. So thanks again for having me on, Bill. Thanks
so much, Calvin. Always great chatting with you. Thank you, everybody, for your support and appreciate you. We'll, by the way, we're off next week, Jewish holiday. I won't be here unless I get somebody who wants to be a substitute teacher. We're going to skip next week, Tuesday. We'll be back here in 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you. And